Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment.
I guess this video is a follow-up to other videos that I've made in the past, answering a couple of viewer questions and also responding to some mistakes I made in previous videos that I've made. So let's first take a look at the knife right here, which is my pink Azula. This is a knife made by Etsy some time ago. I won it on Knives Live TV, and it was very bright pink. And you see here the markings on it, Rowan and Azula on the back. And also, if you notice there, Rat Cutlery Company. So this is a very early Etsy Azula, and it's in pink. And apparently they did not make a lot of them in pink. And the question is, what should I do with it? And one viewer said they would just keep it, but they weren't crazy about the tan wrapping that I had on it. And they said I should go ahead and go with like a really bright color, like a neon color. And so I went with the neon green. And I am going to keep it. It's more of a collector's item than an actual user now. So it's going to be a wall hanger for me. Someday I might actually pick up an Azula that I'm going to use, because actually it's not a bad little knife. But my pink one, I'm going to keep it in the collection. It's going to be a wall hanger. And that's because all it's doing is going up in value. Etsy doesn't make pink Azulas anymore, as far as I know. And I asked them about it, and they never replied back. So I don't know how many were made, but from what I can tell online, it does not look like a whole lot of them were made. So I've got plenty of neon green paracord here, just in case the zombie apocalypse comes and I gotta go and kill myself a few pink zombies. But that's what I'm doing with my Azula, my pink Azula. Okay, let's move on to the other knives. Well, over on the side here, we got two British Army knives. And when I talked about these a long time ago, this is a pattern 317. This is the more modern version, the one that actually says British Army knife. In any case, when I talked about these before, I was under the impression that these knives were also used by the Royal Navy, the British Navy, but I have since been corrected. The Royal Navy does not use this knife, at least not on a regular basis. They might end up getting a few, especially during wartime, you know, as in they need a knife and they'll take anything. But for the most part, no, they don't take the ones with the can opener. The Royal Navy knives are different, and I thank Slick Slicers for pointing this out to me. Royal Navy knives don't have the can opener. They just have the marlin spike and the sheepfoot blade. So let me get this open. You know, a sheepfoot's blade and a marlin spike. And instead of having the screwdriver, the flathead screwdriver on this end, they actually have it down on this end on one of the liners for the knives. So that's the difference between it. I do not own a Royal Navy knife yet, so I'm going to have to buy one. But as you could tell from the little inset picture, that's what they really do look like. So these are British Army knives, and the Royal Navy knife is slightly different. It lacks the can opener, and the screwdriver is moved to the opposite end. It's moved down to the end with the shackle down here. So, big mistake on my video on those knives, and I thank Slick Slicers for pointing that out to me. Okay, and that brings us to this big pile of knives in the middle, which is what looks like a bunch of trappers. And this is in response to For the Love of Trappers, one of the videos I did when I talked about my disdain for trappers. Well, obviously I do have some trappers, but amazingly, this is the only USA made trapper that I have, a standard trapper that I have that was USA made. And that's because it's not a pattern I really collect that much. Now, by standard trapper, I'm referring to one with a clip blade. You notice this one is by Remington. It was actually made by Camillus. See there, Remington, USA, blah, blah, blah. And you've got the Remington shield there. And then the back blade, which is a spay blade. And that's what I don't like about the trapper. I've since been told that this makes a great blade for spreading peanut butter. That might actually make me more interested in collecting a few trappers now and then. You also notice they're first in the field. That's referring to Remington. And so it's really not the most awful knife in the world. I just think it's overproduced and overmarketed. And I have it on good authority that one of the reasons so many of these knives are turned into commemoratives, such as this, is because, number one, it's really easy to jig these knives and make them and churn them out in the thousands because of the way the blades are set up and everything. But more importantly, because of the length of it, 4 1/8 inches long, you got a lot of blade here to work with when you go for the etching and everything. And so you can see this on the 1969 lunar landing knife. A lot of blade there to work with. And more importantly, you got 2 blades to play with. So if you're into blade etching and everything else and turning out anniversary knives and Christmas knives and everything else, there's nothing you can do wrong with like a trapper. And it seems like the gaudier they are, the more likely people will buy them. And but it's all a marketing ploy, and that's my problem with the trapper. And now that you know this is a good blade for spreading peanut butter, a nice butter blade, maybe I'm a little more interested in them, but I seriously doubt it. But as you see, I have other trappers here, and that's because I do like the shape of the frame of the trapper, but it's the spay blade that's my problem, to make it clear. So for instance, this Schrade with the locking saw on it is known as a buzzsaw trapper. I would much rather have a buzzsaw trapper than a trapper with a spay blade. So there's one example of where I kind of like the trapper frame as a buzzsaw trapper, a saw blade. Another one here, this one is by Cattleman's Cutlery. You got a fork, and it's a take-apart knife, which is cool. So you have your fork and your knife blade, so you can actually do some damage to a steak with this knife. Obviously the fork is kind of flat and small, but it's really designed for poking things and then picking it up and putting it in your mouth. You're not going to be doing a lot of scooping with it. So as a take apart hobo kind of knife, I don't mind the trapper too much. Oops, gotta open it back up. No reason for a nail nick here because you can use the tines of the blades to open it. And then close it up, snap them in place, close the blades, and it will lock in spot. So for a hobo knife, yeah, I don't mind the trapper for that. Again, no spay blade. And the other thing I always like to mention with this is, if you notice these tines on the fork, whoops, let me take this apart again. If you end up with a tick or something in your skin, you can actually press down with these tines, slide up, and then pop out the tick. So good for removing ticks and stuff. So when you get it like that, then you know that's a worthwhile trapper because it doesn't have the spay blade. And then here we have a few other examples. This is one by Case. So I do have a second USA made trapper, but if you notice, it's not the full-size trapper, it's the mini trapper. I even have a mini trapper back here by Buck. It's made in China though. And I don't mind the mini trapper nearly as much as I mind the standard trapper because it's a much smaller size and it's much more pocket friendly. And this blade is still usable for spreading peanut butter and stuff. But again, as you notice, you see there Bill Lowen's signature on there and on the front blade, hooked on fishing. So this is Bill Lowen Buck mix-up knife, I guess, or a bash knife, or whatever you want to call it, with a nice little bash shield on it. It was a promotional knife done through SMKW. I bought it because I really like the scales, but I don't mind the blades nearly as much on this as I do this blade, or this knife. I don't mind this slightly smaller spay blade as opposed to the big one. So mini trappers, they're okay, especially if the mini trapper is like this one by Case, very old one. I wish they did this more often and put a pin blade on there. So when you've got a trapper with a pin blade instead of a spay blade, I like it a whole lot more. And here we go, Case XX USA. So it's a much older Case knife with a bone handle. So I'd be a fool not to have a nice Case mini trapper in my collection. I've already got the Remington here, so that covers the large one. I've always said if I can find a Case trapper in stag with no kind of ornamentation on it, I might consider picking that up depending on the price. And here's the latest one of my trapper-like knives that I kind of like, and this is a hoof pick knife, the one by Rough Rider. It just came out. I'll be doing a video on this one by itself later. But as you can see, I don't mind trappers completely. So when I say anything but a trapper, I'm usually referring to this one. Anything but the standard trapper, the 4 1/8 inch long trapper with a spay blade and a clip blade. Mix it up a little bit and I don't mind it nearly as much. But when it comes to the standard trapper, it is my least favorite, well, almost my least favorite among traditional pattern knives. If I had to choose between this and a lady's leg knife, I'll take a trapper any time of the year, but that's really setting the sights pretty low when you say, oh yeah, a trapper is great compared to a lady's leg knife. In any case, there you have it. Just a quick update, probably a little longer than it should have been, but I thought it all needed to be said. So yeah, the pink Azula is now wrapped in green, neon green cord wrap. And now you know I don't know nearly as much about the Marlin Spike knives as I thought I did, because the Royal Navy does not use this type of knife. They use one missing a can opener. And my hatred for trappers isn't nearly as deep as most people think. You know, come to think of it, it really comes down to if I need to open up a bottle of beer, or if I need to butter my toast. That would be the deciding factor on which of these knives I like the least.
Kind of thirsty. Anybody up for a beer? Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.